precious one, what happens when God begins to lead a life? What happens when the invisible hand of the Almighty takes hold of your path and your feet no longer move by your own wisdom but by the whisper of the Spirit? Have you ever stood at the crossroads of life, trembling, staring down two roads you cannot see the end of? Have you ever felt like a ship drifting on an endless ocean, crying out into the storm, wondering if heaven hears, if your compass still works, if your captain is still steering your soul? Some of you are there right now. You're desperate for direction. You're tired of confusion. You're worn down by false signs, shattered hopes, and the silence of unanswered prayers. You want to know, not guess, not assume, not wish. You want to know that God is directing your life. And let me tell you today, with every fiber of fire in my bones, He is. And I am going to show you how you can know it beyond a shadow of doubt. But be warned, child of God, this isn't for the faint-hearted. It's not for those who want easy answers and convenient signs. No, this is for the thirsty, the desperate, the broken, and the bold. For those who are ready to go deeper, to see past the fog and to walk hand in hand with the invisible God through the valley of uncertainty into the mountain of purpose. Let me take you back to a story, one that lives in the pages of Genesis, but echoes in the hearts of every soul seeking direction. Abraham was called by God to leave his homeland, his comfort zone, his security. And all God told him was, go to a land I will show you. No map, no coordinates, no timeline, just a voice, just a promise, just a direction. Go. And he went. That's what faith looks like when God is directing your life. You don't always know where, but you always know who. You may not see the road, but you feel the hand. You may not understand the season, but you trust the voice. If you're waiting for God to drop a flashing neon sign from heaven saying this is the way, you might be waiting a long time. God doesn't always lead with signs. He leads with surrender. Psalm 32:8 says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will guide you with my eye, not with lightning, not with earthquakes, not always with dreams, but with His eye. Do you know how close you have to be to someone to be guided by their... You can't be at a distance. You've got to be face to face. You've got to be intimate. You've got to be still enough. Close enough, humble enough to look into His gaze. So many people miss the direction of God because they're chasing the spectacular and ignoring the still. They want the burning bush, but they ignore the burning in their hearts. They want the Red Sea to part, but they miss the whisper in the desert. But when God is truly directing your life, it is not always loud, but it is always clear to the surrendered soul. Proverbs 3:5-6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your path. Oh, how many of us are leaning on our own understanding and wondering why the path looks crooked. You're trying to understand it all before you obey. You're trying to see the whole picture before you take the first step. But faith doesn't work that way. God says, acknowledge me in all your ways. Not just your church ways, not just your spiritual way, your career ways. Acknowledge Him when you're dating, Acknowledge him when you're deciding. Acknowledge him when you're discouraged. Acknowledge him even when he seems silent. Because when you do, he will begin to direct your steps in ways you didn't even know he could. There's a supernatural GPS that activates in the heart of every submitted believer. It's called the Holy Spirit. And when he lives in you, he doesn't just comfort you, he guides you. Romans 8:14 declares, "For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God." Are you led by your emotions, your logic, your fears, your friends? Or are you led by the Spirit? The Spirit of God leads in peace. Colossians 3:15 says, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." That word rule in the Greek means to act as an umpire. Let peace be your umpire. When peace leaves, something's wrong. When anxiety rules, something's off. When confusion dominates, take a step back. Because when God directs your life, he does it with peace that surpasses understanding. Not peace that makes sense, but peace that makes faith. Let me tell you something that may shake your theology. Sometimes the clearest sign that God is directing your life is that everything around you is shaken. Yes, you heard me. Hebrews 12:27 says that God shakes what can be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may rebuild. When God is directing your life, he often tears down your plans so he can rebuild his. He allows doors to slam so you won't walk through the wrong one. He allows people to leave so you will stop leaning on them instead of him. He allows breakdowns to position you for breakthroughs. Oh, don't you see? Don't you feel it? You didn't lose your job by accident. That relationship didn't fall apart just because that dream didn't die without purpose. God is not just watching you, he is working on you. He is not a passive observer. He is an active shepherd. Psalm 23 doesn't say he suggests paths. It says he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. That means your direction is not based on your name, your desires, or your feelings. It's based on his name's sake. When God directs your life, your story becomes a stage for his glory. Your pain becomes a pulpit. Your detour becomes divine. Just ask Joseph. Thrown in a pit, sold into slavery, lied on in Potiphar's house, forgotten in prison, yet in the end, he could look his brothers in the eye and say, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." Genesis 20. That's divine. That's what it looks like when God is the one writing your story. He doesn't just reroute your life, he redeems it. But here's the hard truth. God's direction often feels like rejection before it feels like redirection. You ask him for promotion and he gives you pruning. You ask him for marriage and he gives you isolation. You ask him for purpose and he gives you process. Because God is more concerned with your becoming than your arriving. You may be walking through fire today and asking, "Where is God?" But the fire is the very proof that he's refining you. Isaiah 48:10 says, "Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." You are not being destroyed. You are being developed. You are not being forgotten. You are being forged. When God directs your life, he doesn't just lead you to green pastures. Sometimes he leads you through the valley of the shadow of death, so that you will fear no evil and know he is with you. Listen to me. God's direction is not always about a place. Sometimes it's about a person. He will lead you into seasons that make no sense so you can discover who he really is. He will block your path to idols. He will disrupt your comfort to bring you into covenant. Because his goal is not to make your life easy, is to make your soul holy. Some of you are asking for clarity, but God is asking for closeness. You want answers, he wants intimacy. And until you surrender fully, you will always question his direction. But the moment you let go, truly let go, and say, Lord, not my will, but yours be done, a divine alignment begins to unfold in your life that no devil in hell can stop. God's direction is not always revealed in the moment. Sometimes it is only understood in hindsight. That's why we walk by faith, not by sight. That's why we cling to his word even when the way seems dark. Psalm 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Not a spotlight, a lamp. That means he shows you the next step, not the next 5 years. You obey today and he reveals tomorrow. Look at Moses standing at the Red Sea with Pharaoh behind him and water in front of him. Did he know what God was about to do? No. But he stood still and watched God move. And that's a word for somebody tonight. Stand still. Don't rush ahead. Don't panic. Don't manipulate. Just trust. The God who brought you to the edge is the God who can split the sea. When God is directing your life, there will be opposition. The enemy will attack. The storms will rage. The doubts will whisper. But you will have an inner confidence that cannot be shaken, a fire that cannot be quenched, a peace that defies logic because you know that your steps are ordered. Psalm 37:23 says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. So stop doubting, stop hesitating, stop second-guessing every closed door. Start trusting that God sees the end from the beginning. And he is not lost, even when you feel like you are. The God who directed the ark across the flood, who directed Israel through the wilderness with cloud and fire, who directed Paul through shipwreck and prison, is the same God directing your life now. He is still speaking. He is still leading. But the question is, are you still listening? Are you close enough to catch the whisper? Are you surrendered enough to obey even when it doesn't make sense? Are you faithful enough to follow when the path is lonely, long, or hidden? Because when you truly yield, something glorious begins to happen. You begin to live not by luck, but by leading. You wake up with purpose. You walk with confidence. You wait with patience. You weep with hope. And you war with peace. Because you know deep in your spirit, no matter what it looks like, God is directing your life. And nothing, no devil, no delay, no detour can stop a soul that is led by the hand of the Almighty. So lift up your eyes, dry your tears, square your shoulders, and keep walking. The one who called you is faithful. He has not abandoned. He has not misled you. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are being led step by step, day by day, from glory to glory, from faith to faith. And yet, beloved, even in the thickest fog of uncertainty, when the future is a dark hallway and every door looks locked, there is a still small voice whispering through the chaos. He does not always shout through thunder, though he can. He does not always shake the earth beneath our feet, though he has. But often God directs us through quiet conviction, holy interruptions, and divine discomfort. And you must be spiritually alert enough to discern when the detour is not the devil's distraction, but God's divine direction. There are times in your life when God will disturb your comfort to deliver your calling. Don't mistake closed doors for punishment. They're often redirections from a loving Father who sees what you cannot. You prayed for clarity, but when the opportunity fell through, you cried out in confusion. Listen to me, child of God. The delay was the answer. The no was the guidance. The rejection was the redirection. Sometimes God protects you by denying what you thought was your destiny. He is not cruel. He is careful with your life, your soul, your future. He is too faithful to let you wander into destruction. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Psalm 37:23. And if your life is truly surrendered, then your every step, even the ones that hurt, are part of the path He has prepared. God does not play games with His children. He doesn't lead you to a cliff just to watch you fall. If you are standing at the edge, it's because He's about to teach you how to fly. He's about to open up something in your life that defies logic and breaks the limits of human understanding. That's what happens when God is in charge. That's what happens when you allow Him, not fear, not ambition, not pride, to direct your life. But hear me clearly. God's direction is not always about movement. Sometimes it is about stillness. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. There is power in the pause. There is revelation in the waiting room. Some of you are running ahead of God, mistaking busyness for purpose. But the Lord says, sit with me. Let me show you the map before you try to take the wheel. Waiting on God is not wasting time. It is the process of aligning your spirit with His voice, your heart with His will. If you move without Him, you may reach a destination, but it won't be the one He ordained. And I say this to those who feel forgotten. God's direction is not always obvious to the naked eye. Sometimes you are being led by a thread of grace so fine it feels invisible, but oh, it is mighty. Just as the children of Israel followed the cloud by day and the fire by night, so too does the Lord guide you with signs that require spiritual vision. You cannot discern His hand if your eyes are on everyone else's journey. Get off social media and into the secret place. Stop comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel and ask God to give you heavenly eyes. His guidance is customized. His plan is personal. His timeline is perfect. Let me tell you something. When God is directing your life, you don't have to manipulate outcomes. You don't have to beg for favor or force open doors. What is meant for you will not pass you. When God commands a blessing, no demon in hell can reverse it. When God says move, you can walk into rooms without credentials and still be chosen. That's the favor of divine direction. The world may not understand it, but heaven has already approved it. And when God opens a door, it stays open not because you knocked long enough, but because He unlocked it with a key made of grace and glory. You want to know if God is directing your life? Ask yourself this. Am I walking in peace or am I striving in fear? The peace of God is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of divine assurance. Let the peace of God rule in your heart. It's Colossians 3:15. That word rule means to umpire, to call the shots. If peace says it's out, then it's out. If peace says stay, then stay. Peace is the compass of the Spirit. If you have to sacrifice your peace to keep a job, a relationship, or a position, then it was never God's will to begin with. God's direction will always carry the fragrance of His peace, even in the storm. Now listen, saints, because this next truth might shake your soul. Sometimes God directs you into difficulty, not away from it. Yes, he does. He led Jesus into the wilderness. He sent Joseph into prison. He permitted Job to be tested. Why? Because direction is not always about ease. It is about destiny. You are not called to a life of constant comfort. You are called to carry a cross. And the cross is not a decoration. It declares, I trust God's way even when it hurts. I follow his voice even when it's lonely. I obey even when I don't understand. That is faith. That is surrender. That is direction. Let us be honest. Many people want the results of God's plan without the restraint of his guidance. They want elevation without submission. They want blessings without boundaries. But hear me. God will not bless what he did in birth. If you are walking on a path that God never authorized, you may gain the world and lose your soul. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is destruction. Proverbs 14:12. Just because it feels good doesn't mean it's God. Just because it looks right doesn't mean it's righteous. You must be spiritually mature enough to say no to what glitters and yes to what is godly. There is a holy boldness that comes from walking in divine direction. You stop asking for permission from people who were never assigned to your calling. You stop explaining your journey to those who can't see your destiny. You stop shrinking to fit spaces God never told you to enter. When God directs your life, he gives you divine confidence, not arrogance, but assurance. You know whom you belong to. You know who holds your future. And you know that every step you take is part of a sacred choreography divinely ordered from the throne of grace. And hear me, when God directs you, he doesn't just lead you to a place. He prepares you for the place. That's why some of you are in a season of breaking, pruning, stretching. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. The crushing of the olive produces the oil. The pressing of the grape brings the wine. Don't resent the process. It is sacred. Every tear, every trial, every quiet night of surrender is molding you into the vessel that can carry his glory. You must be shaped before you can be sent. You must be refined before you can be revealed. Don't despise the season of silence. Don't despise the days when heaven seems quiet. God is still speaking. He's just speaking in a language that requires spiritual ear. He may be directing you through dreams, through scripture, through divine encounters, through godly counsel, through closed doors, through inner stirring, but he is speaking. The shepherd never stops leading. Sometimes the sheep just need to slow down and listen. When God is directing your life, you will find yourself in places you never imagined, doing things you never planned, with a strength you never knew you had, because it is no longer you who lives, but Christ who lives in you. Galatians 2:20. And when Christ is your life, then the path you walk is not just yours, it is holy ground. Every step becomes sacred. Every moment becomes ministry. Every decision becomes destiny. So I ask you today, who is holding the pen of your story? Have you surrendered your plans, or are you still wrestling for control? The Lord is calling you to let go, to lay down the map you drew and pick up the one soaked in his blood, engraved with his love. To say, not my will, but yours be done. That's where direction becomes destiny. That's where chaos becomes clarity. That's where wandering ends. And yet, my friend, there are still some listening to this word who feel suspended between two worlds. Your feet are walking forward, but your soul is still asking, Lord, is this really you? You wake up in the morning with a burden that doesn't come from worry, but from a deep, holy unease. It's the ache of transition. It's the holy tension of divine movement. That is not confusion. It's confirmation. Because when God begins to truly direct your life, he will pull you out of everything that is familiar and call you into the unknown. He did not give Abraham the full plan. He gave him a simple command. Go to the land I will show you, Genesis 12:1. Not the land I have shown you, not the land with the brochure and 5-year blueprint. The land I will show you. Direction from God requires trust. Without total clarity, oh, how we crave details. But the God of heaven is not a God of step predictability. He is the God of faith. And faith is not knowing the path. It's trusting the guide. It's standing in the middle of a sea with walls of water on either side and believing they won't crash down until you've reached the other side. It's circling Jericho 7 times, even though nothing moves for 6. It's gathering jars like the widow did when all you have left is a little oil. Divine direction will stretch you beyond human logic and lead you into realms where miracles are the only explanation. And there will be seasons, oh yes, there will be seasons where God's direction contradicts human wisdom. He will tell you to stay when everyone else says go. He will whisper, leave, when your flesh cries, stay. He will instruct you to build an ark when there isn't a drop of rain in the forecast. And if you're waiting for popular opinion to confirm what God said in the secret place, you will miss the move. You will miss the miracle, because divine direction isn't voted on by the crowd. It is revealed in covenant. God does not call committee meetings to authorize his will for your life. He speaks, and it is so. I must warn you with love. If you truly let God direct your life, you will be misunderstood. You will be misjudged. People will call you radical, extreme, unstable, because what is obedience to God often looks like rebellion to the world. Noah looked like a fool until the flood came. Joseph looked like a dreamer until he became a ruler. Mary looked scandalous until she birthed the Savior of the world. Do not let the fear of being misunderstood become the muzzle of your mission. If God said it, walk in it. If God led you, stay in it. The cost of obedience may be high, but the cost of disobedience is higher. There is a fire that burns in the heart of a soul led by the Spirit. A fire not kindled by ambition, but by an encounter. A fire not sustained by applause, but by intimacy. And when God is truly directing your life, that fire becomes your compass. You can't ignore it. You can't suppress it. You wake up burning with purpose. You go to sleep burning with passion. Your soul becomes a living altar. And everywhere you walk, heaven walks with you. You begin to sense what others cannot see. You discern atmospheres. You feel burdened for things that others call ordinary, because divine direction awakens divine sensitivity. And when the Lord directs your path, you begin to live from eternity, not urgency. You stop chasing success, and you start walking in significance. You realize that it's not about how quickly you arrive, it's about how deeply you obey. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, not because he failed, but because God was preparing him. to lead a nation. Jesus spent 30 years in quiet before 3 years of ministry. Change the world. Don't despise slow seasons. Don't rush what God is writing. What he is forming in the dark will shine in the light. And what takes time to build will last when the storms come. Sometimes the greatest sign that God is directing your life is not found in what changes around you, but in what transforms within you. Your desires shift. Your appetites change. You no longer hunger for the applause of man. You crave the presence of the King. You're no longer satisfied by shallow distractions. You long for the deep things of God. You don't just want to do for him, you want to be with him. And that, my friend, is the greatest direction of all. Not just to a place, not just to a calling, but to a deeper walk with Jesus. There is a place in God where you stop asking him to follow you and you begin to follow him step by step, breath by breath. You wake up each morning not with a list of demands, but with a heart of surrender. Lord, what would you have me do today? And it may not always be grand. Sometimes God's direction will lead you into hidden places, to serve in silence, to pray behind the scenes, to love the unlovable, to forgive the one who broke you, to stay when it's hard and go when it's uncomfortable. But in those hidden obeisances, eternity is being shaped. You are never more in the will of God than when your heart is postured in surrender. Your spirit tuned to his voice. Let me speak to the one who feels paralyzed by fear, afraid to make the wrong move. You're waiting for a booming voice, a burning bush, a thunderclap of confirmation. But child of God, sometimes the direction you're looking for is already in the last word God gave you. Go back to it. And so, fear. Revisit the moment he whispered a calling in your heart. Reignite the fire he placed in your spirit. Don't let fear mute what faith ignited. God is not the author of confusion. 1 Corinthians 14:33. He is not dangling your purpose like a cruel mystery. He is guiding. He is leading. Even in your hesitation, he is patient. Even in your weakness, he is strong. And if you truly want to know if God is directing your life, look at the fruit. Not the hype, not the numbers, the fruit. Are you walking in love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-will? These are the road signs of the Spirit. These are the indicators of divine direction. If your walk is producing the character of Christ, then you are on the path of life. And even when it's hard, even when the way is narrow, there will be a holy contentment in your soul because you are not walking alone. Heaven is walking with you. So press on. Don't let the silence scare you. Don't let the pain distract you. Don't let the opinions of men detour you. If God is directing your life, then every detour is divine. Every delay is protection. Every trial is training. And every battle is building you for the blessing. You are not lost. You are being led. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. You are not abandoned. You are being anointed. Lift your eyes to the hills. Your help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will neither slumber nor sleep. Psalm 121:3. His hand is upon you. His spirit is within you. His plan is unfolding even now. Trust him. Follow him, yield to him, and he will make your path straight. Oh, beloved, There is a sacred urgency to understand this truth, that God is not distant or disconnected from your daily steps. The Almighty King of the universe does not merely watch from afar as life's storms toss you about. No, he is intimately involved, deeply invested in your journey, meticulously weaving every thread of your story into a tapestry of divine purpose. To know God is directing your life is to grasp that you are not an accident, not a random collection of events, but a carefully designed masterpiece fashioned by his hands before the foundations of the world. Ephesians 2:10. Every breath you take is under his sovereign orchestration. Consider Joseph, a man betrayed, falsely accused, and forgotten in a prison cell. Yet the Lord was with him. Even when the world seemed to abandon him, God's direction was perfect and purposeful. Joseph did not lose sight of the vision God gave him years before. He knew deep within that every twist and turn, the pit, the prison, was a step toward the throne. When he finally stood before Pharaoh, he declared, "It was not you who sent me here, but God." Genesis 45:8. God's direction often includes dark valleys and waiting rooms, but these are not places of abandonment. They are classrooms of preparation. When God leads, no suffering is wasted. No tear falls unnoticed. No setback is final. The God who directs your path is the God who redeems every broken piece and sets it to work for your breakthrough. But listen carefully, for divine direction demands a heart of radical obedience. It is easy to say, "Lord, direct my steps," but far harder to walk them when they lead through fire and shadow. When God directs, he will call you to step out of your comfort zone and into the arena of faith where giants dwell. You will be called to release control. Your plans, your timelines, your preferences. And say, "Not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. This surrender is not weakness. It is strength forged in humility. God's ways are higher than your ways, and his thoughts beyond your understanding. Isaiah 55:8-9. To be led by God is to accept the mystery of divine wisdom over human logic, to embrace the unseen with unwavering trust. And do not be deceived. When God directs, he will surround you with his word. His promises will become your anchor in the storm. Scripture will no longer be distant words in a book, but living, breathing life breathed directly into your spirit. The psalmist declared, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." This illumination is not optional. It is essential. You want to know God's direction? Saturate your soul in his truth. Let his word penetrate your doubts, heal your wounds, and ignite your courage. When the enemy whispers lies, the sword of the Spirit will cut through the darkness, guiding your feet away from destruction and onto the path of life. Furthermore, discernment is a gift of the Spirit, given to those who hunger and seek. It is the ability to distinguish God's voice from every other sound that clamors for your attention. The world is filled with distractions, selfish ambition, deceptive counsel, fleeting trends, but the Spirit's direction is clear, firm, and peaceful. When God leads, his voice brings a deep, unshakable peace that surpasses all understanding. Philippians 4:7. This peace is not mere absence of conflict, but the presence of divine assurance, even in the midst of chaos. When your heart wrestles between choices, wait for that peace. When your mind races with fear, pray for that peace. It is the unmistakable signature of God's leading. Oh, how many have missed God's direction by rushing ahead in impatience or retreating in fear. But those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. Isaiah 40:31. Waiting is not idleness. It is active surrender. It is the deliberate positioning of your soul beneath the mighty hand of God, trusting that He will lift you at the perfect moment. To know God is directing your life is to learn the art of holy waiting, to hear His whisper in the silence and obey, even when the way is not yet clear. And there is one more mark, one final sign that God is indeed guiding your steps. Transformation, not just external success or recognition, but inward change. When God directs, He does not leave you as you were. He prunes, He purifies, He disciplines, all for the sake of bearing more fruit. John 15:2. The pressures of divine direction reveal your hidden weaknesses, expose your pride, and refine your character. But take heart, beloved, for this refining is not condemnation, it is grace. God's discipline is the sign of His fatherly love. Hebrews 12:6. When you sense your heart being stretched and your spirit growing stronger, it is evidence that the master potter is shaping you into the vessel He intends to use for His glory. So stand firm in this truth. God's direction will always glorify Him, bless others, and draw you closer to His heart. It will never lead you into selfishness, deception, or destruction. If you find yourself walking a path that dims your faith, dims your love, or dims your joy, reconsider if it is truly God's leading. The fruit of His guidance is life, abundant, everlasting life that begins the moment you say yes to Him. Beloved, do you want to know God is directing your life? Look to Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Hebrews 12:2. He is the ultimate example of obedience, the perfect child of God who listened, obeyed, and walked in divine purpose, even unto death on a cross. Follow His footsteps. Align your will with His. Let your heart beat in sync with the Savior's, and watch how the God of heaven opens doors no one can shut. Heart sees no one can cross alone, and writes stories of redemption that echo into eternity. Walk forward now, not with hesitation, but with holy boldness. You are not alone. The God who created the stars directs your steps. He who counts every hair on your head watches over you. Your journey is in His hands, and His plans for you are good, perfect, and full of hope. Jeremiah 29:11. So rise up, child of God, step out by faith, follow the voice of your shepherd, and let the world witness what happens when a life is truly led by the hand of the Almighty. Oh, beloved, hear me now with a heart wide open. Knowing that God directs your life means embracing a reality far beyond human comprehension. It is stepping into a divine choreography where every moment, every encounter, every challenge is not left to chance, but is part of a sacred symphony composed by the Almighty. The psalmist proclaimed, "The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord." Psalm 37, verse 23. Not a single step is random or wasted. This ordering of your life's path means God is intricately involved in even the smallest details of your existence. There is a divine precision that frames your story, and it will unfold exactly as He intends, perfectly timed, perfectly placed, and perfectly purposed. But understand this: God's direction does not always come wrapped in grandeur or dramatic signs. Sometimes his voice is a gentle whisper, a still, small voice amidst the roaring storms of life. 1 Kings 19:12. It requires a heart trained to listen and a spirit disciplined to discern. When Elijah stood on the mountain, the wind, the earthquake, and the fire all passed, but God was in the whisper. So often the world demands that God speak in thunderous revelation. But his most profound guidance comes quietly, patiently, tenderly. If you are seeking the unmistakable mark of God's direction, cultivate silence. Step away from the noise, the busyness, the distractions. In that sacred silence, you will find his voice calling your name, inviting you to walk in his way. And let me declare boldly, the road God directs is never a path of selfish ambition or personal glory. True divine guidance leads you into the heart of servanthood. It calls you to lay down your desires, your rights, and even your dreams, that you might take up his yoke and bear the burdens of others. Jesus said, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." Mark 9:35. God's direction leads you to love that costs, to humility that breaks pride, and to generosity that gives without expectation. When you find your life intertwined with the needs of the broken, the hurting, and the lost, you will know that God's hand is upon you, guiding you into the ministry of his grace. Yet there will be times when God's direction feels like a burning in your spirit, a fire that will not be quenched even in the face of opposition. When the world rejects your calling, when friends question your purpose, when darkness presses in, stand firm. Remember Paul's words, "I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God." Romans 8:38-39. The presence of resistance, the cost of faithfulness. These are not signs of abandonment, but confirmation of divine calling. God does not promise ease, but he promises his presence. When the pressure mounts, it is God refining you, proving your faith, and preparing you for the glory ahead. And listen to this powerful truth: God's direction will always bring about a supernatural peace and confidence that defies your circumstances. In the swirling chaos of uncertainty, when every human instinct screams fear and doubt, God's guidance will stand firm like a rock that cannot be moved. The peace he grants is not a fleeting emotion, but a deep-rooted assurance anchored in his eternal character. It is the peace that Jesus spoke of. "I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." John 14:27. This peace will guard your heart and mind, enabling you to walk boldly into the unknown, because you know the one who leads you. Oh, but beloved, be wary of counterfeit guidance. The enemy prowls like a roaring lion, seeking to confuse, to distract, to lead you astray. Not every impulse, not every feeling, not every sign is from God. The Spirit of truth will always point you to Jesus, to the cross, to the Word of God. If your direction leads you away from holiness, away from love, away from truth, reject it with all your might. The true leading of God sanctifies and uplifts. It never compromises his holy standards. The Apostle John warns us, "Test the spirits to see whether they are from God." 1 John 4:1. So test every direction with the plumb line of Scripture and the witness of the Spirit. Furthermore, the evidence of God's guidance manifests in divine appointments, doors open that no man can close, Relationships align with your purpose. Vision appears in ways that defy logic. Opportunities arise that seem orchestrated by a hand unseen. When God directs your life, you will find yourself in the right place at the right time, often surrounded by the right people, equipped with the right resources. This is not luck or coincidence. It is divine favor. Abraham experienced this favor when God promised him descendants as numerous as the stars and led him step by step to the land of promise. Trust that same God who guides the cosmos to arrange your path with intentionality and grace. And remember, dear child of God, that knowing God is directing your life calls you into relentless prayer. Prayer is not a last resort, but the first response. It is the divine communication line between your soul and the throne of heaven. When you pray, you're not merely making requests. You're positioning yourself to hear God's heart, to receive His wisdom, and to be empowered by His Spirit. Jesus Himself modeled this life of prayerful dependence. Before every crucial decision, He sought the Father's will with fervent prayer. If you desire to walk under God's direction, become a person of prayer. Unceasing, fervent, expectant prayer that aligns your will with His. And lastly, beloved, let your testimony be a living sermon. Let your life declare boldly that God's hand has been upon you. When others see your unwavering faith amid trials, your joy in suffering, your hope in despair, they will know you walk not by sight, but by faith. Corinthians 5:7. Your story will ignite faith in the hearts of the weary, shine light in the darkness for the lost, and exalt the name of Jesus above all. God's direction is not just for your sake, it is for the glory of His kingdom and the advancement of His gospel. So now, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm in this truth. To know God is directing your life is to rest in the certainty of His unwavering faithfulness. When your steps align with His word, when your heart is attuned to His Spirit, and when your soul finds peace beyond understanding, you are walking the path He has set before you. Never doubt the power of His guidance, even when the way is steep and the night is long. For the one who calls you is faithful, and His plans for you are good, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11. Trust Him, follow Him, obey Him, and watch as He unfolds the beautiful tapestry of your life, directed by His perfect hand, filled with His glory and crowned with His everlasting love. Walk boldly, beloved, for God is not only directing your steps, He is carrying you into His divine destiny. Imagine for a moment the vastness of the universe. Billions of stars scattered across the night sky. Galaxies stretching far beyond what the human eye can see. Yet Scripture reminds us that God not only created them all, but also knows each star by name. If He holds the cosmos together in perfect order, how much more capable is He of holding your life in His hands? God's sovereignty means He reigns supreme. There is no situation too complex, no problem too overwhelming, and no enemy too powerful for Him to handle. The storms of life may seem chaotic to us, but to Him they are like the waves He calmed with a single word. His power is unmatched and His authority is limitless. Sometimes we feel the need to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. But friend, that weight was never meant to be yours. God invites us to lay it down at His feet because He is strong enough to bear it. He spoke the universe into existence. Surely He can speak peace into your heart. When we reflect on his sovereignty, we are reminded that he is not a distant or indifferent God. He is personal, compassionate, and fully aware of every detail of your life. The very hairs on your head are numbered, and not a single sparrow falls to the ground without his knowledge. This is the God who invites you to let him handle it. It's time to stop striving in your own strength and start resting in his. Trust his power, trust his purpose, and trust his plan. When we acknowledge that he is sovereign, we can release our fears and anxieties into his capable hands. How often do we convince ourselves that we can handle it all? That if we just try a little harder, work a little longer, or think a little deeper, we can fix every problem, solve every mystery, and conquer every obstacle. Yet, time and time again, life proves that our human efforts, no matter how sincere, have limits. We live in a world where control feels like the ultimate goal. We want to control our careers, our relationships, our finances, even the future. But the harder we try to grip the reins of life, the more we realize that they slip through our fingers. Anxiety rises when plans fall apart. Disappointment sets in when results don't match our expectation. And exhaustion takes over when we try to carry burdens never meant for us. The truth is, we were never designed to shoulder it all. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 19:21, many of the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. No matter how carefully we plan, God's purpose will always be greater. Our attempts to control every outcome often lead us away from peace and into frustration. Think about it. How many sleepless nights have been spent worrying over things that were out of your hands? How often have you tried to force open a door that God himself may have closed for your good? The more we strive to take control, the more we discover how little control we truly have. But here is the good news. You don't have to carry it all. God never intended for you to. When we stop relying on our own strength and surrender to his will, we find freedom. Freedom from the pressure to always be perfect. Freedom from the fear of failure. Freedom to rest in the knowledge that God is at work even when we don't see it. So stop exhausting yourself by trying to handle what only God can. Let go of the futile pursuit of control and let God take his rightful place in your life. When you trust him to handle it, you'll discover that he can do immeasurably more than all you ask or imagine. Life is full of trials, unexpected storms that shake us to the core, challenges that feel too heavy to bear, and seasons of waiting that test every ounce of our patience. In those moments, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and wonder if we'll ever see the other side. But here's the truth. God uses even the darkest valleys to accomplish his greatest work. When we face trials, our first instinct is often to fix them ourselves. We scheme, we plan, we stress, and we push forward, hoping to find a way out. Yet time and time again, we find that our strength isn't enough. The waves are too strong, the winds too fierce. That's when faith steps in and whispers, "Let God handle it." Trusting God through trials doesn't mean denying the pain or pretending everything is fine. It means acknowledging the difficulty while believing that God is greater than the storm. It's the kind of trust that says, "Lord, I don't understand why this is happening, but I believe you are still good. I believe you are still in control. The Bible is full of promises for those who trust Him in hard times. Romans 8:28 reminds us, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. That doesn't mean every trial is good, but it does mean that God can use even the worst situations to bring about something beautiful. Look at the story of Joseph. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. His life seemed like one tragedy after another. But Joseph trusted God. And in the end, he could say to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." When we trust God through trials, we are placing our faith in a God who sees the whole picture. While we see only the momentary pain, He sees the eternal purpose. While we are focused on the problem, He is working out the solution. So when the trials of life come, and they will, don't carry them alone. Lay them at the feet of the one who promised never to leave you or forsake you. Trust that even when the way forward is unclear, God is already paving the path. He is faithful. He is able, and He will see you through. When life becomes overwhelming, where do we turn? For many, the instinct is to seek solutions, consult friends, scour the internet, or rely on our own ingenuity. But the power of prayer reminds us that surrendering to God is not a last resort. It is the first and greatest step we can take. Prayer is much more than a spiritual ritual. It is an act of humility, a declaration that we need God's help, and an invitation for Him to take control. When we bow our heads in prayer, we are essentially saying, "God, I can't handle this on my own, but I know you can." It's a simple yet profound act of letting go and allowing God to step into the situation. Philippians 4:6-7 tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Prayer is the bridge between our anxieties and God's peace. It's where we release our worries and receive His assurance. Consider Jesus Himself, the ultimate example of surrender through prayer. In the Garden of Gethsemane, as He faced the cross, He prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. In His humanity, He felt the weight of His trial, but in His divinity, He trusted the Father's plan. His prayer wasn't just words. It was a full surrender to the will of God. When we pray, we aren't just asking God to fix our problems. We are aligning our hearts with His will. We are handing Him the burdens we cannot carry and trusting Him to work in ways we cannot see. It's not about presenting a wish list to God, but about fostering a relationship where we listen, trust, and obey. Prayer doesn't always change our circumstances immediately, but it changes us. It strengthens our faith, renews our hope, and gives us the courage to keep moving forward. And often it is through prayer that God provides the clarity, wisdom, and peace we desperately need. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, don't let prayer be your last resort. Let it be your first response. Let it be the place where you surrender your fears, frustrations, and uncertainties to a God who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine. Prayer is the act of placing your trust in God's hands and saying, "Lord, I trust you to handle it." There is a peace that the world cannot, a calm that doesn't come from circumstances or solutions, but from the act of surrendering to God. When we let go of our burdens and allow God to handle them, we experience a peace that defies all understanding. Think about the times in your life when you've tried to carry it all. Every worry, every responsibility, every fear. The weight is overwhelming, isn't it? Look, I said I'm sorry about a minute ago. Sleepless nights, anxious thoughts, and the constant sense that it's all on your shoulders. That's the world's way. Hold on tighter, try harder, and don't let go. But God's way is the opposite. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the illusion of control and trusting the one who holds the universe in his hand. It's saying, "Lord, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that you do. I don't see the way forward, but I trust that you are already there." The peace that comes from letting go is not passive. It's active faith. It's choosing to trust God when the storm is raging. It's deciding to rest in Him even when the situation seems hopeless. And that peace doesn't depend on the outcome. It depends on the presence of God. Remember the story of the disciples in the boat during the wind was howling, the waves were crashing, and fear gripped their hearts. But where was Jesus? He was asleep, not because he didn't care, but because he had perfect peace. And when the disciples woke him in their panic, he simply said, "Peace, be still." Mark 4:39. The wind and waves obeyed him. And in that moment, the disciples learned that true peace comes from trusting the one who commands the storm. When you let go and trust God, you'll find that the peace He offers isn't dependent on your circumstances. It's a peace that can't be explained, only experienced. It's the quiet assurance that no matter what happens, God is in control. So stop striving. Stop holding on so tightly to the things you cannot control. Lay them down at the feet of Jesus. Let Him handle it. Yeah. And as you do, you will discover the profound truth of Isaiah 26:3. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. How often do we find ourselves asking, "Why, God? Why did this happen? Why am I facing this challenge? Why does life feel so uncertain?" Our human understanding is limited, and when life doesn't make sense, we wrestle with the unknown. But the truth is, God's wisdom far surpasses anything we can comprehend. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." In those words lies a powerful truth. God sees the full picture while we see only a small piece of the puzzle. What may seem confusing, unfair, or even hopeless to us is part of a much bigger plan that God is orchestrating in His infinite wisdom. Think about a child who doesn't understand why their parent says no to something they want. To the child, it feels unfair or even cruel. But the parent with greater knowledge and experience knows what is best in the long run. In the same way, our perspective is finite, but God's perspective is eternal. He knows the beginning, the end, and every detail in between. When we rely solely on our understanding, we limit ourselves to what we can see, hear, and figure out. But faith calls us to trust God even when We don't understand his ways. Proverbs 3:5-6 encourages us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Trusting God doesn't mean we'll always get immediate answers, but it does mean we can have confidence that his plan is always good. Consider the story of Job. From a human perspective, his suffering seemed senseless. He lost his family, his wealth, and his health. Yet he held on to his faith in God's wisdom. In the end, Job's story wasn't just about his trials. It was about God's greater purpose and the restoration that followed. When life doesn't make sense, let God handle it. Trust that his wisdom is greater than your understanding. Instead of asking why, ask what. What is God teaching me in this season? What is his purpose for me in this situation? You may not have all the answers, but you have the assurance that God does. He is not surprised by your circumstances, and he is never at a loss for solutions. Trust his wisdom, and you'll find that even when life feels uncertain, his guidance is steady and sure. The Bible is filled with stories of ordinary people who faced extraordinary challenges and saw God's power when they chose to let him handle it. These examples remind us that surrendering to God is not a sign of weakness, but a profound act of faith. Take Moses, for example. Called by God to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses felt unqualified and inadequate. He protested, saying, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" Exodus 3:11. But God's response was clear. "I will be with you." When Moses finally surrendered to God's call, the impossible became possible. Seas parted, plagues came and went, and an enslaved nation was set free. Then there's Joseph, whose life seemed to spiral out of control. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison, Joseph had every reason to give up. But he didn't. He trusted that God had a greater purpose, even when he couldn't see it. Years later, when he stood as a ruler in Egypt, Joseph was able to tell his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Genesis 50:20. We also see surrender in the story of Esther, a young queen who faced the terrifying prospect of approaching the king to save her people. It was a move that could have cost her life, but she trusted in God's plan, saying, "If I perish, I perish." Esther 4:16. Her courage and surrender led to the deliverance of an entire nation. And of course, there is Jesus, the ultimate example of surrender. In the Garden of Gethsemane, facing the weight of the cross, he prayed, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. His surrender to the Father's will brought salvation to the world. These stories have one thing in common. When people surrendered their plans, fears, and struggles to God, he worked in ways far beyond what they could have imagined. Moses saw deliverance. Joseph saw redemption. Esther saw salvation. Jesus brought eternal life. Their lives show us that God's power is made perfect in our surrender. When we let go and trust him, he can take what seems broken and make it whole. He can turn what seems like a dead end into a path of victory. So when you face challenges that seem insurmountable, remember these examples. God has not changed. The same God who parted the Red Sea, redeemed Joseph, and saved Esther's people is the God who stands ready to work in your life today. Let go of the need to control and let God handle it. Trust that He can take your surrender and turn it into something beautiful for His glory. In a world that values speed and instant results, waiting can feel like an unbearable challenge. We want answers now, breakthroughs today, and solutions immediately. But God doesn't operate on our schedule. His timing is not just different, it's perfect. Ecclesiastes 3:11 reminds us He has made everything beautiful in its time. This verse is a powerful reminder that God's timing is never rushed and it's never late. It unfolds with precision, aligning perfectly with His plan and purpose for our lives. While we see only the present moment, God sees the beginning, the end, and every step in between. Consider the story of Abraham and Sarah. God promised them a child, but the fulfillment of that promise didn't come for years. In their impatience, they tried to take matters into their own hands, which only led to complications and heartache. But when God's appointed time arrived, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, the son of promise. The delay was not a denial, it was preparation for something far greater than they could have imagined. Sometimes we mistake waiting for inaction, but in reality, God is always at work. During the waiting season, He is shaping us, strengthening us, and preparing us for what's ahead. Just like a seed planted in the soil, growth takes time. The roots must develop before the fruit appears. Trusting God's timing means believing that He is working behind the scenes, even when we don't see immediate results. Another example is the story of Lazarus was sick. He didn't rush to heal him. In fact, He waited until Lazarus had died. To those watching, it seemed like Jesus had come too late, but in His perfect timing, Jesus performed a greater miracle by raising Lazarus from the dead, showing His power over life and death. The delay wasn't neglect. It was part of a divine plan to reveal God's glory. Waiting on God's timing requires faith and patience. It's trusting that His plans are better than our own and that His ways are higher than ours. Isaiah 40:30-31 promises, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Waiting is not wasted when we trust in Him. So when it feels like God is silent or the answers are delayed, remember that His timing is not a reflection of His inaction or lack of care. It's a reminder that He is working everything out for your good and His glory. Trust the one who knows the right time for every blessing, every breakthrough, and every miracle. Let go of your timeline and rest in the assurance that God's timing is always perfect. Fear is one of the greatest obstacles to trusting God. It whispers doubts, stirs anxiety, and keeps us paralyzed when we're called to step out in faith. But faith and fear cannot coexist. One will always overshadow the other. To let God handle it, we must choose faith over fear. Fear comes when we focus on the what-ifs of life. What if I fail? What if things don't go the way I hoped? What if this situation gets worse? These thoughts consume us when we look at the size of the problem instead of the greatness of our God. But faith shifts our perspective. It reminds us of God's power, His promises, and His presence. Throughout Scripture, God repeatedly tells his people, do not fear. Why? Because he knows our natural tendency is to be afraid when we face uncertainty or difficulty. Yet every time he says, do not fear, it is followed by a reassurance of his presence. Isaiah 41:10 declares, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Take the story of David and Goliath. From a human perspective, David had every reason to be afraid. Goliath was a giant, a seasoned warrior, and seemingly unbeatable. But David wasn't focused on the size of the giant. He was focused on the size of his God. His faith allowed him to say, the Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine. Samuel 17:37. David's faith in God gave him the courage to face what others feared. Similarly, Peter's experience walking on water teaches us how faith overcomes fear. When Peter stepped out of the boat, he was walking toward Jesus, defying the laws of nature. But the moment he shifted his focus to the wind and the waves, fear took over and he began to sink. Jesus immediately reached out and said, you of little faith, why did you doubt? Matthew 14:31. The lesson is clear. When our eyes are fixed on Jesus, faith prevails. When we focus on the storm, fear takes control. Faith doesn't mean ignoring the reality of challenges. It means trusting God in the midst of them. It's believing that he is bigger than any obstacle, stronger than any opposition, and faithful to fulfill his promises. Hebrews 11:01 defines faith as confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Choosing faith over fear is a daily decision. It's declaring, God, I trust you even when I don't see the outcome. I believe you are in control even when I feel uncertain. When we let go of fear and hold on to faith, we open the door for God to work powerfully in our lives. So whatever giants you're facing today, whether they are fears of failure, uncertainty, or loss, remember that faith is your weapon. Let God handle your fears and let your faith rise above the storm. For when faith leads, fear has no place. One of the greatest reasons to let God handle the challenges in our lives is his unwavering faithfulness. Unlike the shifting sands of human promises, God's faithfulness is eternal, steadfast, and unchanging. He has never failed, and he never will. Deuteronomy 7:9 declares, know therefore that the Lord your God is God. He is the faithful God, keeping his covenant of love to 1,000 generations of those who love him and keep his commandments. This verse reminds us that God's faithfulness is not conditional on our circumstance. He's rooted in his unchanging nature. Even when life feels uncertain, God remains constant, fulfilling his promises and sustaining us through every season. Think about the Israelites wandering in the wilderness. Despite their doubts, complaints, and unfaithfulness, God remained faithful to them. He provided manna from heaven, water from a rock, and a pillar of cloud and fire to guide them. His faithfulness was not dependent on their actions, but on his covenant with them. The same is true for us today. Lamentations 3:22-23 beautifully reminds us, because of the Lord's great love, We are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Every morning, God's faithfulness meets us with fresh mercies, equipping us to face whatever lies ahead. Consider also the story of Paul, shipwrecked, beaten, imprisoned, and persecuted. Paul endured trials that would have crushed many, yet he never doubted God's faithfulness. In 1 Timothy 4:17-18, Paul writes, "But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom." Paul's confidence wasn't in his own strength, but in the faithfulness of God to see him through. God's faithfulness doesn't mean we won't face hardships. It means that in the midst of every trial, we can rest assured that he is with us, working for our good and his glory. Romans 8:28 promises. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Even when life doesn't make sense, his faithfulness ensures that every moment is part of his greater plan. When you place your trust in God's faithfulness, you can let go of the need to control and let him take the reins. His track record is perfect. He has never failed his people, and he never will. Whatever you're walking through today, remember that God has not forgotten you. He is faithful to carry you, provide for you, and fulfill every promise he has made. So when life feels overwhelming, cling to the truth of Psalm 36:5. Your love, Lord, reaches to the heavens, your faithfulness to the skies. Let this truth be your anchor. Let God handle your challenges, for he is faithful to see you through. Trust him, and you will find that his faithfulness is more than enough. In conclusion, the call to let God handle it is not just an invitation. It is a declaration of trust and surrender. It is acknowledging that while we may not have all the answers or solutions, we serve a God who is more than capable. His wisdom, his timing, his faithfulness, and his power are unmatched. And when we choose to let go and trust him, we step into a place of peace, confidence, and hope. The Bible is filled with reminders of God's ability to handle the impossible. From the lives of Moses, David, and Esther to the ultimate example of Jesus, we see that surrender is not a sign of weakness, but an act of faith. By letting God handle our struggles, we open the door for him to work in ways we could never have imagined. It is in our surrender that he shows himself faithful, delivering us not just from circumstances, but into his perfect will for our lives. So whatever you may be facing today, whatever challenges or burdens you carry, I encourage you to lay them down before God. Trust in his power, rest in his peace, and know that he is always working for your good. Let go of fear. Let go of control and let God handle it. His promises are true. His faithfulness is unshakable, and his love will never fail. When you trust him fully, you'll find that there is no better place to be than in his hands. Life is full of twists and turns, some expected, many not. And in those moments of uncertainty, we often try to control every little detail. It's human nature to hold on tight, to cling to our plans, our timelines, and our own limited understanding of how things should unfold. But what happens when life doesn't follow our script? What do we do when the road we've mapped out suddenly crumbles beneath our feet? This is where faith steps in. Not just any faith, but a deep, unshakable trust in God's timing. Because here's the truth, God doesn't operate on our clocks or calendars. His timing is not bound by the constraints of human understanding, and his ways are far higher than ours. When we put everything in his hands, we're not giving up. We're saying, God, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that you do. It takes courage to surrender. It takes boldness to say, I don't know how or when, but I know who, and that who is the one who created you, the one who sees the bigger picture when all you see are scattered pieces. Trusting God's timing means understanding that delays are not denials. Closed doors are often divine protection. Detours may feel like setbacks, but they're really setups for something greater. When we stop wrestling with life and start resting in God, we begin to see how perfectly He orchestrates every moment. He's never late. He's never early. He is always right on time. So if you're in a season where things feel uncertain, if you're standing in the middle of chaos, wondering how it's all going to work out, take a deep breath and remind yourself God's got this. Put it in His hands. Let Him take the lead, because His timing is not just perfect. It's always for your good. Faith is the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to be. It's not about knowing every step of the journey. It's about trusting the one who's leading you. Fear and doubt have a way of creeping in, whispering lies into your spirit. You're not good enough. You'll never make it. What if everything falls apart? But here's the thing. Faith silences those voices. Faith reminds you that you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to believe in the one who does. When you put everything in God's hands, you're not operating from fear. You're stepping into trust. And trust doesn't mean you won't have questions. Trust doesn't mean you won't face challenges. It means that even in the storm, even in the uncertainty, you choose to believe that God is bigger than the obstacles in front of you. Faith isn't the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear have the final say. Faith isn't passive, it's active. It's walking forward even when the path isn't clear. It's showing up even when you feel unqualified. It's believing that if God brought you to this moment, He's already prepared the way for you to get through it. Faith doesn't just move mountains, it moves you. It lifts your eyes off the problem and focuses them on the promise. Here's what I want you to understand. Doubt will always knock on your door, but you don't have to let it in. Fear will try to paralyze you, but faith will give you the strength to keep going. When you live with faith, you're saying, I don't have to see it to believe it. You're declaring that God's plans for your life are greater than anything you could imagine. So whatever you're facing right now, whatever feels impossible, overwhelming, or out of reach, remember this. Faith is your key. Step out, not because the way is clear, but because God's word is true. Believe beyond the fear. Push past the doubt and watch how God shows up. When you dare to trust Him fully, worry has a way of wrapping itself around your soul, doesn't it? It's heavy. It drains your energy, steals your peace, and keeps you up at night. And yet so many of us carry it like a badge of honor, as if worrying about something will somehow fix it. But let me ask you this. When has worrying ever solved a problem? When has stressing over the future ever changed it? Worry is a burden we were never meant to bear. When you put everything in God's hands, you're saying, I refuse to carry what was never mine to carry. You're saying, God, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I trust you hold tomorrow. Here's the truth. Worry is rooted in control. We want to manage outcomes, predict the future, and ensure everything goes the way we plan. But life doesn't work like that. And the more we try to control what's uncontrollable, the more anxious we become. Letting go doesn't mean you're giving up. It means you're giving it to God. The Bible tells us to cast our cares on Him because He cares for us. And that word cast is powerful. It means to throw, to hurl, to release. It's not a gentle act. It's intentional and decisive. It's saying, God, this is too heavy for me. Take it. And when you do, something incredible happens. You find peace. Not because the situation has changed, but because your perspective has. You realize that God is bigger than the problem you're facing, is stronger than the storm you're in, and He's more than able to handle what feels impossible to you. So today, if you're carrying the weight of worry, I challenge you to let it go. Put it in God's hands. Stop trying to figure out every detail and start trusting the one who's already worked it out. Because when you release worry, you make room for peace. When you let go, you make room for God to step in and do what only He can do. There's a peace that comes when you stop fighting for control and start trusting God's plan. But surrender, it's not an easy word for most of us. We're taught to hold on, to push harder, to keep trying to make things happen in our own strength. And when life doesn't go the way we want, we get frustrated, we question, and we resist. But here's the truth. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's about giving over. It's about recognizing that God's plan is bigger, better, and more beautiful than anything we could ever imagine for ourselves. When you surrender, you're not losing control. You're placing it in the hands of the one who knows the beginning from the end. There's a story being written for your life. God is the author. He sees the whole picture while you're only looking at a single page. What might feel like a setback to you is often a setup for something greater. What looks like a closed door might be His way of protecting you from something you couldn't see. And what feels like waiting is often preparation for the blessing that's on the way. When you surrender to God, you're saying, I trust that your plan is greater than my preferences. I trust that your wisdom is greater than my understanding. That kind of trust brings peace. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. It's a peace that allows you to stand firm when life feels uncertain. A peace that calms your soul, even in the middle of chaos. Surrender doesn't mean life will always be easy, but it does mean you won't have to face it alone. God's plan is perfect. Not because it avoids every challenge, but because it promises to work all things together for your good. Even the pain, even the disappointments, even the things you don't understand right now, He's weaving it all into something beautiful. So if you're holding on too tightly today, if you're trying to force things to happen, or fix things that feel broken, I want to encourage you, let go. Surrender doesn't mean defeat. It means victory. It means allowing God to take the pen and write the story He's always had planned for your life. And in that surrender, you'll find peace like you've never known. Life doesn't always go the way we hope. There will be moments when the weight feels unbearable, when the obstacles seem insurmountable. and when the obstacles seem insurmountable, and when the road ahead is covered in shadows of uncertainty. These are the moments that test your faith, the moments that stretch you, challenge you, and make you wonder if you can keep going. But here's the good news. You don't have to walk through it alone. When you put everything in God's hands, you trust Him. Trust isn't just for the sunny days. It's for the storms. It's for the moments when you feel like giving up. It's for the nights when you cry out, "Why, God?" and don't hear an answer. Resilience doesn't come from avoiding trials. It comes from enduring them with faith. Trials aren't meant to break you. They're meant to build you. They're not punishment. They're preparation. God often uses the hard seasons of life to shape your character, deepen your faith, and position you for something greater. Think about it. Gold is refined in the fire. Diamonds are formed under pressure. The most beautiful stories of triumph always begin with moments of struggle. When you face trials, you have a choice. You have a choice. You can let the difficulty define you, or you can let it refine you. You can try to carry it all on your own, or you can hand it over to God and say, "Lord, I can't do this by myself, but I know you can." Resilience doesn't mean you won't feel the weight of what you're going through. It means you keep moving forward knowing that God's strength is made perfect in your weakness. And here's what I want you to remember. Every trial has an expiration date. Pain is temporary, but God's promises are eternal. You may not see the breakthrough today or even tomorrow, but if you keep trusting, keep believing, and keep putting everything in His hands, He will make a way. The same God who brought you through past storms will bring you through this one too. So don't give up. Don't let the weight of the trial convince you that God isn't working. Even when you can't see it, He's moving. Even when it feels impossible, He's already making a way. Resilience isn't about being strong on your own. It's about leaning into the one who is your strength. Trust Him in the hard times and watch how He turns your trial into a testimony. Obedience. It's a word that often makes us uncomfortable. It challenges us, pushes us out of our comfort zones, and demands that we trust God even when His instructions don't make sense. But here's the truth. There is freedom in obedience. There is peace, purpose, and power when you follow God's direction, even when you don't fully understand where it's leading. Sometimes God will ask you to take a step that feels impossible. He may ask you to leave something behind, to forgive someone who hurt you, to step into a role you feel unqualified for, or to wait when everything in you wants to move. And in those moments, the temptation is to hesitate, to doubt, or to let fear paralyze you. But delayed obedience is still disobedience. And every time you hold back, you're robbing yourself of the blessings God has already prepared on the other side of your yes. Obedience isn't about perfection. It's about trust. It's about believing that God's commands are not burdens. They're pathways to freedom. When He asks you to let go of something, it's because He has something better. When He closes a door, it's because He's protecting you from what's behind it. When He tells you to wait, it's because He's preparing you for what's next. Think about this. Every great breakthrough in the Bible starts started with a step of obedience. Noah obeyed when God told him to build an ark, even though it had never rained. Moses obeyed when God told him to stand before Pharaoh, even though he didn't feel equipped. And the same is true for you. Obedience might feel risky, but it's where faith becomes action. It's where you say, God, I may not see the full picture, but I trust the one who's painting it. It's where you move, not because it's easy, but because you believe in the one who's calling you forward. When you obey, you're not just following commands, you're stepping into alignment with God's plan. You're walking in the freedom of knowing you don't have to have all the answers because He does. You're releasing the weight of trying to control everything and choosing to let Him lead. And when you do, you'll find that obedience isn't about restriction. It's about stepping into the fullness of what God has for you. So today, whatever God is asking of you, don't hesitate. Don't let fear hold you back. Trust His voice. Follow His lead. And know that your obedience will open the door to freedom, blessings, and a life beyond what you could ever imagine. God is a provider. He always has been, and He always will be. But here's the thing. Sometimes in the middle of life's challenges, it's easy to lose sight of His blessings. When you're focused on the struggle, it's hard to see the ways God is sustaining you. Yet, even in your darkest moments, His provision is all around you. Provision doesn't always come in the way we expect. We often pray for a specific answer, specific breakthrough, or a specific outcome. And when it doesn't happen exactly as we imagined, we think God isn't moving, but His provision isn't always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, and steady. It's the strength to get through one more day. It's the unexpected kindness of a friend. It's the doors He closes to protect you from harm, and the ones He opens that lead to opportunities you didn't even know you needed. Think back to times when you didn't know how you would make it through. Remember the moments when you felt like giving up. Somehow, some way, you made it. That wasn't luck. That was God. That was His hand guiding, sustaining, and providing exactly what you needed. Even if it didn't look like what you wanted, God's provision is always enough. It may not always come in abundance, but it will always meet your need. Look at the Israelites in the wilderness. He provided manna, daily bread to sustain them. Not too much, not too little, just enough for each day. And the same is true for you. He gives you what you need for the season you're in. He provides the wisdom, the resources, the strength, and the grace to keep going. But here's the key. You have to trust Him to provide. Worry and fear can blind you to his blessings. Because what James said was, if you have too much, you can tell. James said, if you have too much what you cannot. Yeah. When you're constantly looking at what's missing, you miss what's already there. Gratitude opens your eyes to God's provision. It shifts your focus from scarcity to sufficiency, from what you lack to what you have. So today, take a moment to pause and look around. What has God already provided for you? Where's his hand been at work? He's working behind the scenes, preparing the way and giving you everything you need to walk through this season. When you put everything in his hands, you're not just trusting him with your future. You're recognizing his faithfulness in your present. And when you see his provision, you're reminded that no matter what comes next, he will always be enough. It's not just a ritual or a routine. It's a conversation, a connection, and a lifeline. Prayer is how you invite God into your circumstances and how you align yourself with his will. It's where you speak your heart and where you listen for his voice. But let's be honest, prayer isn't always easy. Sometimes life gets busy and prayer feels like something you'll get to later. Other times you may feel like your prayers aren't being heard. You pray for answers and all you hear is silence. You pray for breakthrough when all you see are closed doors. But let me remind you, God hears every prayer, and not a single word is wasted. Prayer is not about perfection. It's about connection. You don't have to come to God with the perfect words or a spotless heart. You just have to come. Prayer is the place where you bring your fears, your doubts, your joys, and your struggles. It's where you say, God, I can't do this on my own. It's where you lay your burdens at his feet and trust him to carry what you cannot. And here's the beautiful thing about prayer. It changes you. Even when it doesn't change your situation immediately, it changes how you see it. Prayer shifts your perspective. It reminds you that you're not in this alone, that the creator of the universe is walking with you, guiding you, and working on your behalf. Prayer isn't just about asking. It's about listening. Sometimes the most powerful moments in prayer come when you stop speaking and start waiting. It's in the stillness that God whispers his peace into your heart. It's in the quiet moments that he gives you clarity, direction, and strength. And don't underestimate the power of persistent prayer. Some answers come in ways you didn't expect. But every time you pray, you're sowing seeds of faith. You're building a foundation of trust, and you're inviting God to do what only he can do. So whether you're in a season of joy or a season of struggle, don't neglect your time in prayer. Make it a priority. Make it personal. Pour out your heart to him. And then sit quietly and let him fill you with his presence. Because when you stay connected to God through prayer, you're reminded that no matter how big the challenge, your God is bigger. We live in a world that craves instant results. We want answers now, breakthroughs now, success now. But God doesn't work on our timeline. He works on His. And His timing, though it may not align with our expectations, is always perfect. Trusting God's timing requires patience. And patience isn't passive. It's active faith in action. There's a reason why God doesn't always give us what we want when we want it. Sometimes He's preparing the blessing so that it's ready for you. Other times He's preparing you so that you're ready for the blessing. Delay isn't denial. It's divine alignment. When you trust His timing, you're saying, God, I believe that what you have for me is worth the wait. Think about it. A seed doesn't become a tree overnight. There's a process, a season of planting, watering, and waiting. During that waiting season, you don't see the growth happening beneath the surface, but it's there. Roots are taking hold. Foundations are being laid, and the seed is being prepared to bear fruit. The same is true for your life. You may not see the progress right now, but trust that God is working behind the scenes. The waiting season can be hard, though, can't it? It's easy to grow frustrated, to question if God has forgotten you, or to wonder if you've been overlooked. But let me remind you, God's delays are not His denials. Every moment of waiting is an opportunity for growth. It's in the waiting that your faith is stretched, your character is refined, and your trust in God deepens. Remember, God sees the bigger picture. He knows what you need and when you need it. If He hasn't opened the door yet, it's because He's either protecting you or preparing you for something greater. When you rush ahead of God's timing, you step out of alignment with His plan. But when you wait on Him, you allow His plan to unfold in its fullness. So don't despise the waiting season. Use it as a time to grow closer to God. Use it to develop patience, perseverance, and trust. Because when the time is right, God will open the door. And when He does, you'll look back and realize that His timing was worth the wait. Trust the process. Trust the pauses. Trust that God is never late and He's never early. He's always right on time. And what He has for you is more than you could ever ask, think, or imagine. Every person is created with a purpose, a unique calling that only they can fulfill. But sometimes life can get in the way of that purpose. We get distracted by the busyness of daily life, the noise of the world, and the pressures of what others expect from us. You begin to wonder, what am I really here for? What is the point of all of this? When you put everything in God's hands, you're choosing to live with purpose, not by accident. Purpose is not something you stumble upon. It's something you discover through alignment with God's will. Your life is not random, and your circumstances are not without meaning. God has a plan for you that's far greater than what you could ever imagine on your own. Living with purpose means that your actions, your choices, and your decisions are guided by a deeper conviction. It's about waking up every day knowing that you are on a mission, that your life matters, and that your gifts and talents are meant to make a difference. Your purpose may not always be glamorous, but it's always significant. Every step you take in obedience, every act of love, every seed of kindness you plant, all of it is part of the bigger picture God is creating. Sometimes we feel like we have to have it all figured out before we can begin to live with purpose. But the truth is, purpose is often discovered through action. When you step out in faith, trusting God's guidance, you'll begin to see where He's leading you. And sometimes the first step toward your purpose is simply surrendering to God's plan and letting Him direct your path. When you align your life with God's will, you're not just living for today. You're living for eternity. Your purpose isn't about building your own kingdom. It's about being a vessel for God to use in His grand plan. It's about serving others, making an impact, and leaving a legacy that reflects His love and grace. So today, ask yourself, am I living with purpose? Am I lining my life with God's will? Or am I chasing after things that don't truly matter? When you put everything in God's hands, you're choosing to live with intentionality. You're choosing to pursue His plan over your own, knowing that His purpose for you will always lead to a life that is more fulfilling and meaningful than you could ever create on your own. When you live with purpose, you live with passion, you live with conviction, you live knowing that every day is an opportunity to fulfill the calling God has placed on your life. And in that you will find joy, fulfillment, and a sense of peace that comes from knowing you're right where God wants you to be. As we wrap up, I want you to remember this. When you put everything in God's hands, you are choosing to let go of the things that weigh you down and embracing a life of trust, peace, and purpose. It's not about having everything figured out because God already knows the path ahead. It's not about being perfect because God is perfect and He works through our imperfections. Trusting God means letting go of the need to control everything and allowing Him to be the true leader of your life. It means surrendering your worries, your timing, your plans, and your desires to the one who created you, knows you, and loves you beyond measure. It's about understanding that God's plan for your life is far greater than anything you could ever dream or imagine. And while you may not always understand His timing or His methods, you can always trust His heart. He is faithful, He is good, and He is working all things together for your good. As you walk through life, you will face challenges, but you don't have to face them alone. God's provision, His peace, His strength, and His purpose are available to you every single day. You are not walking this journey in your own power. You are walking in His. So today, whatever you're holding on to, I challenge you to let go. Put it in God's hands. Trust that He will guide you, provide for you, and lead you to the purpose He has prepared for you. As you step into His plan, you will experience a life full of joy, peace, and fulfillment. Because when you trust God with everything, you discover that He can do more with your life than you ever could. The journey of trusting God fully is not always easy, but it is always worth it. And when you do, you'll find that He is more than enough for every need, every moment, and every season.